Hi guys, welcome to this tutorial on question 3 of the English Language Paper 2 exam. What we're going to be looking at today then is question 3, which is the language question. Now if you've seen the tutorial for question 2 on paper 1, many of the same things I'll be saying here apply because it's exactly the same skills AO2 that's been assessed for this question. Okay, differences between paper 1 is that obviously we've got no bullet points, but it'd be handy there if I could not put my L's as T's. So no bullet points, but the same things apply. So we're looking for words and phrases, and we're looking for techniques. I tell my classes to avoid sentence forms because they don't tend to do anything particularly good with that. But if you want, you could look at sentence forms, things like, is there a listing sentence or an impact, one-word sentence? You could talk about that as well. So we've got a whole section here from lines 13 to 23. Now, in your real thing, this could be the whole of the text, or it could be part, just like it is here. So just be careful that you check that. And we've got a very precise focus again. How does the writer use language to describe the storm? Now, be aware with this verb here to check what it is. So you're looking at non-fiction. So this, in the real exam, could be a number of other purposes. So to inform, to explain, even to analyse. In this it's describe, which is probably quite nice because descriptive language is maybe a tad easier for us to look at. So this is worth 12 marks, and so we would be spending slightly longer on this, maybe around 15 minutes, and so I would be expecting most students to try to complete 4 P points, but certainly to try and get 3. The same skills apply. So what are we looking for here? We're looking at the ability that students can show us that they can explain the effects, or maybe sometimes a better word to use is the impact of language. So why a writer has done something, what effect does it have on us, what does it make us think or feel? And that's far, far more important than terminology. So we're going to look then at lines 13 to 23. So let's just make sure we've got that section clearly sort of marked on our extract. Now, I would have a bit of a policy. Now, you might do this sort of highlighting in class and spend ages looking for loads of things. I think, you can certainly get level 3, you can be certainly looking up to 9 marks on this question by, finding the first 4 techniques and stopping and just making sure you've written those up. Now at the top end, I would expect students to find patterns of quotes and be able to make connections and links and to think about perhaps how something's developed. So let's have a look what we've got here in this extract. I've highlighted a few things to save us some time, but one of the things that catches my eye is the use of some of these verbs. We've got whipped into camp. We've got plunging the temperature down. We've got engulfing the ice-clad slopes effortlessly. So I would cluster some of these together and think about these use of violent verbs. I think we could do a really good point about how the writers use these. Okay. What else have we got here? The storm swept up the southern flanks of Everest. I mean, there's something quite nice there in that sibilant, in that sound effect. We've got sibilance there, the alliteration of that S. The storm swept up the southern flanks. It sounds quite frantic and quite violent, and you almost get a sense of the hissing storm, the snow powering down. What else attracts me here? Well, I've got here within minutes, it had the northern side in its grip. Well, I like that. I like the personification the writers used here. That storm really feels like it's in control there, doesn't it? That it's in a vice, it's captured it. And the mightiest mountain in the world disappeared from view as the storm took control. we've got here this adjective and we've got the superlative form of it. So we've got this superlative adjective. With describing words, you've got comparative ones, so things like the mightier. But the superlative means it's the most of something, the mightiest mountain. There's nothing more mighty, and yet it's still been, it's still disappeared, hasn't it, because of this storm. So let's think about just one of those. I'm going to focus on the violent verbs. I like those, and there's a pattern of them. So I'm showing the examiner I can really do word level. I can zoom in on single words and cluster them together and talk about them. So I'm not going to mess about with too much of a preamble into this. There's no need for a mini introduction of the writer uses lots of language to describe the snow. I mean, yeah, we know that, that's the question. So let's go straight in with what the writer is doing. So the writer uses violent verbs, okay, such as, so let's cluster a few of these together. Whipped, plunging, plunging. No, sorry about my handwriting on this, guys. It's plunging and engulfing. Right, what are they doing it to do? What's the purpose or the function of these verbs then? The writer uses violent verbs such as whipped, plunging and engulfing to describe what about the storm? The energy, power and ferocity of the storm. So I'm getting across the idea that these have been used for a purpose. The writer has included them for a specific reason. So I'm going to think now about some of the connotations here. So what does whipped make me think of? Whipped has, to me, like punishment, you know, the idea of something being whipped, being attacked. So that idea of has connotations of punishment. And can we link both of these together, plunging and engulfing? Yeah, I think we can. And plunging and engulfing, what do they do? Well, what does it make it seem is happening? What kind of image are we getting in our head here? Reinforces. Carefully about these verbs you use. So words like show and suggest are good, but does it highlight something? Does it add to it? Does it develop or reinforce something? So plunging and engulfing reinforces the sense that Everest is dominated by the storm. So in terms of effects on readers, what is this making? What's the impact of this on me? What am I thinking about this storm? So let's add to this the idea that the mightiest, and obviously I could just show a bit more knowledge there by saying superlative mountain has disappeared. Excuse me, that's the school bell going. The idea that the mightiest, which is mountain, has disappeared, what kind of effect does that create on readers? Is startling. Helps us, what does it help us to do? Helps us to visualize the size, scale, destructive power of this storm. It feels incredibly dramatic and frightening. Okay, so what have I done here with this question? I've identified something the writer's done with some examples here. I've thought about what they're doing, what's the purpose or function, what are they being used to do. I've zoomed in on word level, looking at individual words, which is a really good thing to do. The examiner really like that. If you can find patterns of them, it's even better. And I've thought about what kind of impact that might have on readers and what might it make us think and feel, with some really close small examples there. And really what I'd be encouraging my students to do is just to do, try and do 4 of these in the time they've got, or try to do 3 if they can. And really that's as straightforward as it is. Remember, the key thing to this, don't worry about learning loads of terminology. The key thing is, have you got examples that you can explain what they do and the impact that they have on readers? Okay, that's your question 3.